over the last few seasons, one of the most active teams in the NHL free agency has been the Detroit Red Wings. And we were looking at Twitter here a few days ago, and we seen this tweet. During the free agencies, over the last 2 free agencies, these are some of the signings that the Detroit Red Wings have made, some of the major ones. And you kind of got to think to yourself, in the way that the Detroit Red Wings are rebuilding this team right now, these aren't really the signings that it looks like you should make in this situation, in the way that the YzerPlan has been going on over the past few years. And we kind of been talking around between ourselves of just like, what could this really be? Why could they be making these signings out of everybody that's been available in free agency over the last 2 years? And we have a few ideas, so we're going to talk about it now. So Noah, just briefly on those few signings, what do you think is the whole gist of choosing these players out of everybody else for the Detroit Red Wings in the way that they're going, the direction that they're going right now?
Well, there's a couple questionable contracts there, but I think the main thing is that it's stopgap. You know, Yzerman has a plan. I really do think so, and I think bringing those guys in, it almost allows for their young guys not to be kind of part of like a losing culture. Because I mean, you know that like you said, the Red Wings aren't nowhere near a playoff contention, and I think if you slot those prospects in, you know, guys who are probably going to contend for a roster spot, guys like Kaspar, Sebastien Costa, Simon Edvinsson, who might make the jump again, or might make a jump this year. You know, you don't want to bring those guys into a system, into an organization that's just going to lose and just consistently lose. So, you know, it like to bring those guys in, you know, guys like Justin Hall, who, you know, say what you want about his play, you know, he allows them to kind of stay stagnant, I guess is the best way of putting it. So when the Red Wings are ready to compete, I think those guys like Kaspar and Costa, and they just drafted Sandin Pellikka, another guy, you know, they'll be at their peak and they'll be ready to come in and just take over.
Yeah, it almost seems like they're putting these guys in there to fill up the spots with NHL-ready players who've had experience, just so this team is not really falling apart. It's kind of going in all different directions. They're still on a path ahead of being competitive. They're trying to remain with the teams around them. You know, the Atlantic Division. Right now, especially last season, it's been pretty competitive, that division, with the Boston Bruins, Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, even the Ottawa Senators in Detroit now. They're coming up, and they're getting a lot closer. You know, those like 3 teams there fought for one of the last playoff spots. Like, they weren't too close as the other guys, but, you know, they were fighting for it and near the end of the year. So having players like these guys that you can see here on the signings, just like Ben Sherratt, JT Compher, you know, David Perron, Andrew Kopp, Ville Husso, all these guys, they kind of signed them when they were, you know, on a high. Like, Ville Husso played in the playoffs there 2 years ago, played really good. And Bennington came in for him, but that's a whole different situation here. But David Perron also, he scored about 10 power play goals on Minnesota in the first round. That made me so mad looking at that. But it shows like that the Detroit Red Wings are trying to remain competitive while they're still in that rebuild stage, just to get the other the prospects that they have, like you said, you know, Kaspar is going to be coming up eventually, but those guys, to get them into that competitive atmosphere going into their entry into the NHL. But it's also a good direction that they're going in. You can see here their forwards. Like, right now, this is not a bad lineup. It's obviously no
very good, yeah.
It's no playoff ready lineup, but this lineup will remain competitive, even with like their prospects on the way up. But like you said, those contracts, they're getting like, once one player gets moved out of this contract. So let's just say here, David Perron. He has 1 year left now, as this was 2 years ago. He signed this one last year, so he got 1 year left at $4.8 million. When his contract expires, maybe the Detroit Red Wings don't sign him, and they move, I don't know, maybe Kaspar into his spot. Like, it's going to be, I like the way you said that, it's going to be just kind of drawing past for their prospects to come up. But another thing is their defense here. Sorry, wrong one there. Like, this is another very solid defense. You have Shane Gostisbehere and Justin Hall, 2 placeholders for what is likely going to be Simon Edvinsson, one of them. Maybe Axel Sandin Pellikka in a few years when they come up. But I do like the way this is shaping out, you know. And as well, like you said, the cap space here, $13.5 million. They have a lot of room to do stuff. Yeah. A lot of room to sign the guys they're going to need to in a few years when these guys get their entry levels and they expire. So what do you think that this salary, this cap space allows them to do with these prospects once they come up and once the current NHL, you know, veteran style players they have signed right now expire? So like, what do you think they're going to work the cap into their prospect pool?
Well, I think you got to look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, Steve Yzerman built that team as well, and he signed guys to very team friendly deals. Guys like Stam Coast only signed for $8 million, and all their core is pretty much locked up in how, and like they've been together their whole career. So I think Yzerman is just trying to bank some money in hopes that those guys. I mean, we still keep talking about Marco Kaspar and Simon Edvinsson and all those guys. I think he's preparing for them to be, elite players. And I think when it comes down to it, I think you have to lock those guys up. And I think that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, no, it's very, very smart the way that he's doing it. I like that they're garnering all these young players and trying to move them in, not all at once, because that could put you in a bit of a cap problem. But moving them in, maybe put one here this year when some expires, move 2 in, then move 3 in or whatever, just like that. So they're all offset on years, and you're not going to put yourself in too much of a cap trouble. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Noah, is what do you think about the Filip Zadina being bought out? He was their top prospect a few years ago. Kind of an interesting situation that someone who even could have been on their third line in a few years, but still not that bad of a player, gets bought out by a team that once was very, very high on him.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to make of that whole situation. I do think he definitely would benefit from a change of scenery. I think he had a couple injury troubles there last going off, but I still think he has the potential to be a good player. I don't know where exactly he'd go. I mean, I wouldn't mind him on Montreal, to be completely honest with you, but I'm interested to see how he pans out and see where he goes, because he could be a pretty interesting pickup for any team.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The change of scenery, I think, was definitely needed. He didn't turn out what the Detroit Red Wings wanted him to be. That's for sure. They once thought he was going to be the next superstar on that team, and obviously that didn't pan out. But I guess they also couldn't have gotten much of a return in just trade requests for him. They probably couldn't get what they wanted, and just said just be easier enough to let him go. He could have got a 7th, but maybe it's just a whole tough situation to be in. And one more thing I want to talk about this team is the goaltending situation. They had Alex Nedeljkovic, who is no longer on this team. They have Sebastien Costa, a big prospect. They signed Alex Lyon and James Reimer both this season, and they have Ville Husso, who they signed last season after a very good season with the St. Louis Blues. So what do you think about the goalie situation here, Noah? They put themselves in a kind of good spot. They got a veteran like Ville Husso, as well as James Reimer. And I was looking at the roster earlier. Those two right now are on the NHL roster, and then you have Alex Lyon and Sebastien Costa ready to come up. And so what do you think about that veteran, the veteran goalies staying in the NHL and those two rookie goalies being down in the minors?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of the same situation. You're just trying to stay stagnant a little bit. They have, I think their starters now are Ville Husso, and I would assume James Reimer would be their backup.
Yeah,
and
that's what it was earlier.
Yeah, would be their third goalie. But not that Costa. I don't think Costa's ready. And that's not to say that he won't be in an elite level, because I really think he is. I mean, how tall is he? He's like 6'6" or something.
Yeah, he's huge.
Yeah, which is crazy. But I still think, like I said, I think Sebastien Costa is their goalie of the future. And I think you have Ville Husso at another 3 years at 4.8, I think it was.
Well, two years at 4.8 after this, yeah.
So, in 2 years' time, I think Sebastien Costa might be ready to take over that number 1 role. I'm also a huge fan of kind of crowding the crease and just letting the goalies play as best as they can and just see who wins the starting role.
Yeah, no, it's a good situation to be in. You can't have too many goalies, but I like the way that they have it. Ville Husso, he's there for the long run. James Reimer comes in to be a good backup. You expect an injury here or there with the goalie. Alex Lyon had that competition this year with Florida. Played a few games when Spencer Knight was out. He came up, played in the playoffs this year. Wasn't great, but did get some NHL playoff experience against the best regular season team of all time. So that's certainly a big win for the Detroit Red Wings here, getting that whole system ready. And I like the way you said it. That it's kind of just like a whole system to bring them 1 in and 1 out. Ville Husso, I think, will be here for the long run, being that starter. James Reimer be here, maybe gone next year. You'll see. Then Alex Lyon will probably move up. Sebastien Costa will get that starting role in the minors. And then we'll move Sebastien Costa up in the NHL, because you can't. I think we both agree on this. You cannot rush a goalie into a certain situation where they can be. That
it takes so long to develop too, right?
As long as a goalie takes to develop, give them that time. Rushing a goalie is a situation you don't want to be in. It's too much of a risk. I'm kind of thinking a Carter Hart situation here when we say that. Kind of rushed into too much of a pressure situation. and just kind of losing that confidence. So that's like, that's the whole situation of the goalie thing, which I think is the best idea for Costa, because I know I myself especially did when I seen that the amount of goalies they signed in this free agency. I was questioning it until I actually looked at their whole thing, and Alex Nedeljkovic gone, and the way the contracts were structured to have one come in and after the other, and I really do like that. So the question on the bottom of this one, how are we feeling that the YzerPlan? I think that you should feel good about it. You know, it's like I said, the signings here don't really look good on paper when you're not looking at their whole system as one big structure instead of just the NHL and their whole minor league system as two separate entities. You need to put them together, and I think that really makes sense the way that it looks when it's all put together, jammed together, just the contracts and everything. But so I think it's fair to say the YzerPlan is looking good. It's something I think
you just have to look at that Tampa team and look at what he built over there in Tampa, and they're still competing for the cup.
So it's been 10 years.
If you're a Red Wings fan, I'm not worried, to be completely honest with you.
Even if something does change in it, there's still lots of time to be able to just take another route, you know? Like, take another route and, like, oh, this don't work? We'll try this. So I think there's absolutely nothing to worry about. I think this, if anything, this should make you more excited to be a Red Wings fan and look at what they're going to be having in this future of this team, because it's going to be looking very good, I will say. I'm saying a few years, this team will be very, very, very big challenge to play against in any tough game, tough series in the playoffs, you know, anything. But that's all we got for this video. Let me know what you think. Let us know what you think about in the description or in the comments. What do you think about the Detroit Red Wings, the prospects, these contracts here? Because, you know, they obviously look a bit questionable to start off just with a quick glance. But let us know what you think about this whole team, this whole situation, what you think that Steve Yzerman is going to be doing with this team. But make sure to like the video if you did like it, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do want to see more content from us. A lot of stuff coming, a lot of very fun stuff coming. But that's it. Signing out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.